A musical introduction to Don Giovanni. After the overwhelming success of his Lenosy di Figaro in Prague, Mozart wanted to write a successor work for the Czech capital. He asked Da Ponte for a proposal for a theme. Da Ponte suggested the material of Don Juan. Mozart was enthusiastic and Da Ponte set to work. Since the 18th century did not know the copyright, Da Ponte generously made use of existing works. In order to describe the final result of the collaboration between Da Ponte and Mozart, superlatives must not be neglected. World theatre at the level of Don Quixote and Hamlet, or opera of the operas are attributes heard and read again and again. The opera begins with fateful chords. With D minor, Mozart chooses a key for the beginning of the overture which he reserves for the most tragic moments, such as his Requiem. We come to one of the dominant themes of the opera, the distinction of class. In Mozart's operas, whereas one finds it between the lines. For example, that the stage presence of Leporello's role is the same as that of his aristocratic master and that both have the same voice arc. This was revolutionary in courtly Vienna and went beyond all norms. Soon Don Giovanni appears with Donna Anna. Interestingly, in exactly what happened in the bedroom, did something happen? If so, was it consensual? And the tragedy happens. Don Giovanni stabs the commander, Donna Anna's father, who hastened to the scene. At this moment the game of love becomes a game of life and death. Don Ottavio shows up. He is the only tenor role of this opera. We are used that the tenor is the hero in an opera. Here the tenor is a poor guy and the typical loser. His relationship with Donna Anna is complicated throughout the opera. At the death of the commander he comes too late, and he constantly has to sing arias instead of doing something. Throughout the opera Donna Anna shows him around like a dancing bear, telling him what to do and what not to do. Leporello tells Elvira about Don Giovanni's women. Accompanied by giggling flutes, he begins to read from the catalogue. For this reason the aria bears the title Catalogue aria. In Italy, 640. In Germany, 231. 100 in France. In Turkey, 91. But in Spain already 1003. Leporello saves the biggest impudence for the end of this aria. So long as she wears a skirt. You know what he does. He sings provocatively slowly 4 times what he does and pokes around in the wound of poor Elvira. Mozart and Da Ponte prove true black humor. In the next Don Giovanni's art of seduction for the first time. This consists of a seductive, languidly sung melody of La Chiederam la mano. Moreover, he lies to her about marriage and wealth. What is psychologically interesting is that Don Giovanni adapts musically to the peasant environment, and Mozart composed a simple, anything but aristocratic melody. Zelena is torn and sings, I want and I don't want, but Mozart she likes to be seduced by her fairytale prince Don Giovanni. Mozart lets her repeat musically everything that Don Giovanni sings to her, until they finally sing the melody together. Don Giovanni's Champagne aria is an exuberant piece in which he feverishly gives Leporello instructions for the evening at breathtaking speed. Leporello is supposed to organize a party with music and dance and ensure that everyone is drunk, so that Don Giovanni can pursue his favorite activity. 12 new conquests should be on the list by the next day. Don Giovanni is a murderer and a seducer, but he also has a great appetite for life, which Mozart notably composed with the forward pulse of music and the fast notes. When listening to the aria it is not possible for us to detest him.
In canalino alla latesa una gran festa fa preparar, se tu rimpiazza qualche ragazza te con quella cerca minar,
Zelena wants to get to know Don Giovanni better. To get a break from her lover, Zelena soft soaps Musito with the aria Batti, Batti Bel Musito. This piece is one of Mozart's magical love songs. Even if Zelena wraps her Musito around her finger in this aria, and Mozart composed teasing moments with trills, it is still a beautiful love aria. Mozart's beautiful idea of the solo cello, which tenderly plays around the voice of Zelena during this aria, deserves special mention. In addition to the literary figure of Don Juan, at the time of the composition of Don Giovanni there existed a legendary seducer of women, Giacomo Casanova. At the time of the composition he was already over 60 years old and retired. He was a Ponte. Casanova visited La Ponte and Mozart during the preparations for the opera in Prague, and was present at the first performance. Apparently he gave advice on the libretto, but it is unclear whether Da Ponte took it into account. Don Giovanni wants to seduce another woman. This Serenade for Elvira's made as a romantic piece. The sounds of the accompanying mandolin give the piece an unmistakable note. It is sung in the evening silence with muted volume, so that it is not heard by the neighbors. Don Giovanni has beaten up Mussetto. To comfort him, Mozart gives Zelena a magical love song and Zelena wraps her naive fiancé around her finger. Mozart has reserved the most beautiful layers for the female voices. Almost motherly, she gives comfort to Musito. Together with the orchestra's tender trills, this has a calming, almost comforting effect on the maltreated Musito. In the second part we hear the pulsation of her heart in the orchestra. This wonderful piece ends with a tender orchestra coda and the pulsating heart. Don Ottavio feels two main emotions. On the one hand the duty to revenge and on the other hand the love for Donna Anna. These feelings must be sung in his aria Al mio tesoro with aristocratic dignity. The aria begins with a warm expressive love theme, dolce e espressivo, accompanied by a beautiful motif of strings. From a dramatic point of view, Elvira's aria non media is somewhat unnecessary, but it is simply great. The orchestra begins with a supernatural theme repeated by Donna Anna. The aria then takes on an almost ecclesiastical, prayer-like character and a chromatic sequence of notes describe pain and sorrow until the theme of the beginning is repeated. The second part is in the form of moving allegretto with beautiful coloratura. Don Giovanni's character is evident in the dramatic scene when he dies. He is not a coward. Everything turned out positive, marked by what happened. Donna Anna asks her fiancé Don Ottavio to give her another year to think about it. Leporello has to find a new lord and Donna Elvira goes to the monastery. Only Zelena and Musito, the people from lower class, are happy together. The nobles, we are on the eve of the French Revolution.